And I make this commitment to you tonight. We will not have Bill Barr as our Attorney General. Is that okay? I promise. He was a coward. He was afraid of being impeached. So how do you not get impeached? I told him, don't be afraid, Bill. I got impeached twice. My numbers went up. Don't be afraid. Sir, they want to impeach me, sir. They want to impeach me. He said, Bill, just relax. Just relax. And a general who's a fantastic general actually said to me, sir, I've been on the battlefield. Men have gone down on my left and on my right. I stood on hills where soldiers were killed. But I believe the bravest thing I've ever seen was the night you went onto that stage with Hillary Clinton. And then that woman asked you the first question about it. And I said, locker room talk. It's locker room talk. What the hell? Locker room talk. But many people that are, major criminals, very few have had an honor of being indicted for it. I'll tell you one thing. I'm the first guy that ever got indicted whose poll numbers went up. Can you imagine President Xi? I have to say, the press gets very angry when I call him a brilliant person. How about Kim Jong-un? He's got more nuclear missiles. I say, can you do anything else? Let's go to a ball game or something. Did you ever? I love when they say, we really want to run against Donald Trump. That's the one we want. We don't want to run against Ron DeSanctimonious with his high heels and his bobblehead bullshit, Baker today in the New York Times, he said that I want to be a dictator. I didn't say that. I said I want to be a dictator for one day. And you know why I wanted to be a dictator? Because I want a wall. Yeah, well, we did.
Barry, you made the people really suffer there. I did a full hour of that, actually closer to 2 hours last weekend. So you guys now really know what I do for you, since you just had to suffer through 90 full seconds of that. That's all that was, 90 seconds. Here we are. Ballot Box, Tim Miller and Bill Crystal. Bill, how you doing? How'd you enjoy that little clip?
I was better 91 seconds ago, but I guess I survived watching it. You watched the whole. You didn't go. You watched the live stream last Saturday night.
I did. Well, I watched it Sunday morning, if I'm being candid. I do have a life, and I watched it on 1.75 speed. So, it goes a little quicker. So I didn't spend the full time there. But I made it through, I guess I'd say a good 80% of it on 1.75 speed, which is about all you can ask for me, I think. And here's the thing, we can laugh, and obviously there's a lot of stupid stuff there. But there were some elements that are pretty, I think, telling about where things are going. So you did not suffer through it all, but you read Sean McCreish's excellent recap of it in New York Magazine. I think it's important to start here because I think the the nightly news has made a decision that, the Trump Catskills Act does not make their 30-minute summary. And maybe that's the right call. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I think that there's a lot we can learn about Trump from just that event. So anyway, well, I'll give you my thoughts, but I'm curious what your reactions were just kind of reading about it.
I want to get your reaction. Since you suffered through it, you should probably at least have the option to go first. Did you actually see? Did they pan the crowd much? I mean, did you get a sense? So there was at Harry Cipriani's, I think, which is the big. He has a couple of restaurants, but then he has this big converted bank kind of ball, event space right near Grand Central. I've been to charity functions there, and the Manhattan Institute, the think tank, often has their annual dinner there, and it was black tie, obviously. You can see. So all this, Trump, the candidate of the white working class, the hollowed out jobs in middle America, New York City, East Side, 1,000 people, I guess, black tie. And my sense from the couple of articles I read about it was a very upscale, wealthy New York audience enjoying all the, proto-fascist, if I can call it that, or, pretty, not just the Borscht Belt shtick, which is an important part of Trump's success. And certainly I think that he does have that kind of, it can be fun to watch him for people who like that kind of thing, I guess. But not balking at all, I guess, was the sense I got from what I read. The audience did not object or gasp a little when Trump embraced so many of the things that people accuse him of, like being interested in being a dictator.
No, the opposite. They want more dictatoring. They did pan the room, and the head table. I think the head table tells you a lot about what was there. I freezed it on when they kind of panned to the table that Trump sat at, because I wanted to get a full accounting of who was at the table. And it was Steve Bannon, Steve Bannon's former podcast co-host, Boris Epshteyn, Matt Gates' wife, who is the sister of the rich guy that did the Pepe memes for Trump thing in 2016. So they've had kind of the five families have gotten together. The Gateses and the Luckies have managed to create a Trump billionaire marriage. Trump's lawyer, and Habib Alina, whatever her name is, her lawyer, and various of these things. And then the guy that was the host of this was a young Republican, Gavin Wax, who is kind of interesting only in the sense that like he has gone fully Trump. He completely transformed the New York Young Republicans, which used to be this kind of Rockefeller-ish, crystalish group, right?
10 years ago or something. Yeah.
And he's transformed it fully into a Trump bridge and tunnel group, and he kind of imitates Trump, and like he dresses like Trump, and his like when they showed him on the intro, he's doing the lip pursing like Trump. Anyway, so they have a little mini Trump. And that's the head table. And here's why. And then Rudy is at the next table over. So here's why I find that interesting. Is that this guy was the former president. He is clearly the leader. We're about to get. We'll get to the Sununu Haley news from tonight here next. But he's a clear front runner to be the nominee again. We're a month out from Iowa. Generally speaking, putting aside your point that it's kind of like absurd that the working class guy is like at Cipriani Wall Street, like doing these kind of things with rich people cheer, clinking glasses and cheering on the coming fascism. Like even putting aside that, like at a high dollar thing in New York, you would expect it would be the Patakis and the Jamie Dimons and the singers, right? Like that, the type of the Mike Lawler and the congressional delegation. Those people aren't there. Right, those people, despite the fact that they will all, maybe not Diamond, but the rest of them will all succumb to Trump by the time the convention comes around, they still are trying to keep like an arm's length, right? And so Trump's inner circle at this thing is people that have been indicted. Jeff Clark is there. It's his co-conspirators in Georgia, Jeff Clark, Rudy Giuliani. It's Bannon, who's been indicted. And then it's a bunch of like internet influencers. Like Trump from the stage shouts out DC Drano, Pizzagate Jack Posobiec. Like, again, this is the type of thing that generally speaking, a politician would come and they'd shout out the local city councilman or the former the governor, the congressional delegation, whatever. Like Trump's out there shouting out Twitter influencers. And that is like important because it speaks to this like fundamental issue with Trump 2.0, which is what our friend Ala Pundit, right, over in the Dispatch said, personnel is policy. Like the people that are going to be in his circle are the weirdest, are the people that were even too weird to be in Trump 1.0, which was filled with weird people. And I think when you compare that to the clip that Barry showed, which I do think was important, of Trump mocking Bill Barr and everybody screaming, like they've decided that Bill Barr, who was a pretty irresponsible attorney general, frankly, going along with, like he went 90% of the way there with all Trump's corrupt intent. And now that guy is mocked, and they're going to want to replace him next time with whatever. DC, who the hell knows? Stephen Bannon, Stephen Miller. Like that, I think that is why that kind of rogues gallery of a dinner is actually very meaningful and important.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the Barr thing was very striking. I hadn't actually realized he went after Barr specifically. Barr's from New York. I don't know that Trump was thinking about that aspect of it, but it's very telling, right? I mean, Barr was a coward because he wouldn't go. He did some shady things in terms of handling the Mueller report and a bunch of other way around the Justice Department. Was pretty politicized, but he wouldn't quite go far enough after November 3rd. It wasn't exactly a pillar of courage from our point of view. He resigned quietly with a very effusive letter about how great it had been to serve Trump, and left those other guys who we saw testify before the January 6th committee to deal with, like, to actually beat back the coup attempt on January 2nd or 3rd or whatever, but whatever. And Barr has since been critical of Trump. And so he just, he just goes after Barr, and they all think that's great. So they are on board with what Bob Kagan warned about, which is basically some element of steps towards dictatorship, certainly, overcoming the rule of law and so forth in a pretty unabashed way. The dictator thing is so interesting because I was talking with Bob actually the other day, and we were wondering, would he embrace, would Bob first wrote the piece in the Washington Post, the first one, which sort of said he's on a path to dictatorship. We've got to be serious about this. And would he embrace dictator, or would that be maybe a little worrisome for him? And he'd push back on that at least. And he's got this sort of in-between position where he semi-pushes back. It's ridiculous. I'm just going to be a dictator for a day. I'm going to drill and build the wall, as if that's what Trump's talking about. Trump doesn't talk about drill much anymore, partly because we have more oil today than, I think we're getting more oil today than we were during the Trump presidency. The wall, he doesn't talk about that much because he didn't quite build it and all that. So he disingenuously pretends it's just about the kind of conventional, you might say, 2016 Trump type things he'll do on his first day in office. But that's not what the crowd's excited about. I think you said this. The crowd's excited about the dictatorship side of it, not the wall part or the drilling part. And so I think they're pretty much embracing the dictatorship, sort of, and people seem fine with that. Yeah, no more
this
Bill Barr.
Group,
that's
the core group, right? And I think that's
right. There'll be no Bill Barr to stop Trump in the second term. There'll be no Mike Pence. The people who literally stopped things between November, 3rd and January 6th. Those are the worst. He doesn't want any of them around.
Right. They're gone. That's scary. And to your point about how they embrace it. Now, I do think there's kind of these two categories, right? Like that we've talked about this, like there's the MAGA establishment type, which are the old establishment types that have gotten on board with MAGA, and maybe they think that some of this is a little gauche, they don't really want an autocracy, but they're on board with it, and they've melded with Trump, and they've basically come to terms with it, and they're rationalizing it in their own ways. But then there is this group that will now be his core group if he's to win again, that was at this event. And I think they're not just on board with it; they're excited about it. And this, going back to McCreesh's article in the New York Magazine about this, I think his kicker on this is I think very important, because he's in the room and he's actually talking to these people, and he's like, what I hear from them, especially when they're liquored up, is that Trump has often been a flake and a disappointment. They felt frustrated by the fact that he squandered his time in office and didn't, listen too much to the Kushners, listen too much to the John Kellys, and his more aggressive authoritarian plans were squashed. Like, that's what the people in this room freaks. Like, that's their main fear. And so, as McCreesh observed, which I did as well, like, Trump senses this, and he's on stage and he keeps shouting out Bannon in the crowd in like a weird way, kind of like Bannon has this power over him or the room. He keeps being like, you don't mind, Steve, if I say this, Steve, or like, remember the story we did, Steve, or that Steve is down there, Steve. It doesn't sound like a guy that has pushed that group aside. It sounds like that he's very conscious of the fact that core base wants him to, what do you mean by dictator, right? Like, they don't want him to like have concentration camps probably, but like they do want an Orbanist, like anti-rule of law leader, and like that's what he's promising to be.
And some of these guys individually may be clownish and whatever, internet influencers who wouldn't know how to arrange the Justice Department so as to pursue Trump's political enemies. But there are enough people at the Heritage Foundation and elsewhere who
Claremont. You tweeted the Claremont guy.
Yeah, there's a woman, I think, from Claremont Institute who thought this was great, and yeah, he's going to skip. I guess that's why maybe she was asked, is, do you approve of all this, like this dictator stuff? Well, he may have to skip some of the rules and stuff the first few days to begin to dismantle the deep state. Now, again, yeah, you're right. It's step by step, but it's not, as I said last time, I think it's not the Reichstag fire. It's not concentration camps, one presumes, but I don't know. I mean, it could be, and we're a year away from the election, and who knows what his grievances will be by the time we get through another 9-10 months of this. And who knows, again, and people who will be unleashed underneath him in the agencies, but especially at defense, justice, and stuff. He may, he doesn't have that big and long attention span, and he might not think of doing a whole bunch of things, but they're going to be in there wanting to be. I mean, I saw the not mild version is not fair, the very different version of this, I believe, in the Reagan administration, where it was mostly, I think, a healthy kind of, that's a conservative agenda, but not anti-rule of law and so forth. But we wanted to be strong Reaganites, and we kind of wanted to outdo the next person, right? If the education department, we were going to, little department, we were going to do better than the transportation department in advancing a Reaganite agenda in an imaginative way. And we were very, I mean, honestly, I think 90 5% of us were pretty careful and genuine, not just careful, dedicated to the rule of law and to due process and not being, breaking, not to dictatorship. We just thought we were doing the kind of normal Reaganite agenda. But that dynamic, when it sets in an administration, can be pretty, in this context with Trump's stuff, dangerous. And it's not like there's going to be likely to be there's no Republican Party that will check him, which there was, again, even Reagan. We had liberal senators. We couldn't get people through. We couldn't get our budget through. So for all of Reagan's kind of radicalism, it was checked by his own party and obviously checked by the other party in Congress, in the House, which they controlled throughout, and in the Senate when they took that back in '86. And here we will have Republicans controlling the Senate, probably, don't you think?
Almost certainly. Yeah. Democrats looking better in the House, but boy, it's a big risk. Okay. I see your questions. I appreciate the comments from folks asking if I'm getting paid enough to watch this stuff. The answer is no, I'm not. But thank you. Anyway, if you have other questions for Bill, I'm eyeing it. I guess you called this the good in teasing this, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we'll see how good it is. Chris Sununu officially endorsed Nikki Haley tonight. That doubled her endorsement total, as I wrote earlier this week in the Bulwark. She was at that time, the endorsement count among sitting senators, House members, and governors was Trump 109, Haley 1. Trump picked up Josh Hawley tonight, moving up to 110. Sounds like Josh was feeling the pressure because Trump was shit posting him over on whatever his social media is called. And then Haley gets Sununu. So now we're at 110 to 2. I guess Sununu carries a little more importance here. He's the governor of New Hampshire, early state. Notably, the governors of both the first two states have gone against Trump. So that's when I get into my darkest place. I guess it's better that than not. But what's your analysis of the Sununu move tonight, Bill?
I guess that was when I touted this on Twitter. I just let people know this would be happening on Twitter. I said it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly was Trump, and the bad was Republicans on Ukraine and immigration. And then the good was a little exaggerated. But the somewhat slightly hopeful guy who's sort of stepping up to at least try to help the one person who has a chance to stop Trump. And Sununu is doing the right thing in New Hampshire. And I suppose, and the donors, I do think there's real money now coming in behind Nikki, so she has a chance now. Whether she's up to it, more importantly, to be fair to her, whether the voters are interested in any alternative to Trump. This is where I think the failure to go after him to explain for the last year why he should not be president again, they're now paying a huge price for it. So the case for Nikki is sort of, she's a safer bet to be elected than Trump, though Trump's already doing okay against Biden, and there's a little less chaos, and she won't do a couple of foolish things that Trump would do. But it's a relative thing, right? And she says she'll support Trump, as does DeSantis, of course. So you're sort of saying you switch from Trump, the one you prefer, 51% for Trump, 16% I think for Haley. Switch from Trump because Nikki's a little safer and a little better. Maybe you move a few percent that way. But the only way you move a lot of percentages points, I think, is start to really convince people that there's really something to worry about here, or that he is so radical, or everyone else will think he's so radical that he really would have difficulty winning. And who's making that case among Republican elites? No one. Right?
No one.
None of the senators, none of the governors, even the ones who aren't endorsing Trump aren't making that case.
And this is the one where I feel like I'm falling down on my job. Just a really quick aside, Jackie here is correcting us. They're saying that Trump has already said that he does want to do camps. I agree with that. Obviously, there will be immigrant camps, illegal immigrant camps. That is a category difference from death camps. So, anyway, the fact that we're trying to split hairs here over what kind of camps Trump would want to put in is not really a good thing, but important to just get that fact right. I get an email. The lefty journalists kind of use me as a what the hell are Republicans doing, thing. And sometimes these days it's hard for me to answer. Sometimes I have an insight where I understand why they're doing what they're doing. Other times I don't. And I've been getting these emails about Nikki lately and calls, and I just don't have an answer. How do you explain her strategy? Obviously I understand that going full bore at Trump, is probably a death sentence, but not really criticizing him at all. Barely, there are a lot of different levers and things that could be used to try to, move the needle. She gets this endorsement tonight, but why is it so tepid? What is she waiting for? Does she want to be VP? Is she just playing for 2028? I I don't really know. What's your sense?
I mean, I don't think it'll work. I don't approve of it as a kind of moral thing. But I suppose you could make a case that it might be if that just being the alternative to Trump would be enough, and not offending too many Trump supporters, and being just a kinder, gentler version. That's a little unfair, but of Trump, is okay if other people were taking the case to Trump. So that is, if you had a campaign that was cleverly, Nikki was being kind of a little mild and a nice, nice and acceptable, but meanwhile, 20 other Republican heavyweights and conservative big shots and others were just saying over and over, you cannot nominate this guy. He's unacceptable. I personally might not be able to, couldn't vote for him in November. If I can't, think how many others can, so he's going to lose. And then Nikki can be sort of nicer and a little kinder, and say, I think we can do better. With the chaos, it's a little too much.
Sure.
But where's that? Who's doing that? This is where I think, so in a way, given that no one else is doing it, it's a little hard to ask Nikki to be like Chris Christie, because you can see, then you do end up with, 65% of the Republican electorate saying just no way. It does at least have a situation where, in her case about that, most of the Republican electorate is okay with her, just they don't see much reason to move to her from Trump. So I don't think it's a winning strategy, but it's not a totally, it's not out of the question that she gets a decent second in Iowa and maybe first in New Hampshire, and then it's competitive and all that. But the main problem is the total failure of this is a familiar theme, the conservative establishment, the Republican establishment, the Republican elected officials, the former Republican officials, even the former Trump officials, some of whom have spoken up against Trump, Bill Barr and others, sure, but not to really hammer away. Very few have said they wouldn't vote for him in November. Very few have said he's just unfit to be president. And Christie's actually one of the ones who does.
And very few have endorsed Nikki. I get pushback. So I wrote this big article about the endorsements earlier this week and how Trump is crushing her. And a lot of people are like, well, endorsements don't matter. And I agree with that, right? I don't think that Nikki's going to go from 16 to 32 overnight because she gets Bill Barr and George W. Bush and Mike Gallagher's endorsement. I don't think that. But it is an indicator. Right, it is a market signal about what is happening, and it is telling that these guys aren't even trying. Right, like that would the endorsements would just be one part of a broader actual campaign to beat Trump that doesn't seem to be happening. And I guess the Kochs are doing some ads, but like what do you explain to that? Like it's just Chris Sununu. I mean, she can't find anybody else. Like it's pretty bizarre, isn't it?
And I think the Koch's messages, from what I've seen of some of this early stuff they're doing, they'll spend a lot of money and maybe they'll do it well. They'll hire good people, I'm sure, but it's a pretty soft message. It's, he's not likely to win, and sort of the message, he gets blown around. He's temperamental. It's chaotic. You want solid conservative governance. You need Nikki. I don't know. Is that really,
It's not a campaign. It's not a real campaign to beat Trump. There's nothing out there that's happening right now that makes you think these guys are really trying to stop him. And given the nature of the threat, given what they all say behind closed doors, it's just it's not a surprise because they've all been cowardly for 8 years now, but it is noteworthy just how tepid it's been.
Right, and no mention of January 6th. And that extends all the way up to the Wall Street Journal, which wrote an editorial, I think it was Monday, yesterday, maybe over the weekend, sort of, well, Trump's a problem, and he's temperamental and all this, and we can do better with either Haley or DeSantis. But as I recall that editorial, no mention of January 6th, and no mention of Ukraine, a subject the Journal seems allegedly cares a lot about, but which is done if Trump wins. So, I mean, What's amazing, I was just thinking about as you're speaking, though, the attacks on the front runner are much more tepid and less attack-like than the attacks on the front runner in the normal Republican presidential campaigns, where where no one really wants to be a dictator, right? I mean, if you think of 2012 or 2008, the McCain
the criticism we got as Jeb got, the criticism Romney would have gotten in 2012, the criticism that Trump pushes at DeSantis. Right. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. It's like Trump's out there. He's like, you're a girly man who's wearing high heels, and then everybody else is like, well, Mr. Trump's a little crazy, or he's a little chaotic. They don't even say crazy. He's a little chaotic. There's just this imbalance that it's not the type of campaign you would ever run against somebody unless you're just scared of him, and it's obvious that they're scared of him.
And maybe Haley herself has the thought that, well, if Trump's not too mad at me, I still do have a shot at being VP or something in a second Trump administration, or 2008 when Trump is done, if he is. I'm sort of still there as the kind of traditional second place finisher who gets to move up in the McCain Romney way that the Republican Party used to do, but I don't think
come on
that they do that anymore.
She'll be working for Don Jr. Barron. Anyway, okay. Let's finish with Ukraine. I'm in my Slava Ukraini shirt. Zelensky has just been unbelievable again. I don't know if he's clever and he did this on purpose, but I don't know if you saw the leak from the Senate where he demanded that they not demanded, but he said that we should just speak in English, right? Like we don't need to have translators. So he spoke in English to the senators behind closed doors. The senators spoke in English to him a couple of times. He would have to ask like what that word means. And the one time that got leaked is he said, what is stalemate? I don't know the word stalemate. And I don't know if that was like he is an actor, whether that was a performance and an intentional leak or whether that was just a coincidence. I guess that's maybe doesn't have a direct translation, but he has to be flabbergasted. I mean, the whole thing is flabbergasting, right? That it's just like that we're in this situation that Republicans are using Ukraine as like this bargaining chip. Republicans, like the people that many in the senators, at least, many of these senators are old line Cold War Republicans that they want to trade away Ukraine as a bargaining chip to like change asylum rules. I mean, like no matter what, I mean, the thing just, we are really in the upside down. And, JVL wrote today about how Biden really, since he has to be the responsible one, since now the Democrats have to be the responsible one on foreign policy, Biden should just cave on the immigration thing. But Frum is over. You should listen to Frum with Charlie Sykes this morning, which is also on this page. Frum says basically Republicans aren't giving a clear offer to Biden. Like, I don't know what Biden would cave and give them. So what's your assessment of that whole state of play?
No, I mean, I think the Republicans, it's a little loosening the football here. I mean, they claim we just want to make a deal on the border, sort of. Well, Biden says, yeah, kind of, okay, let's talk about it. Well, it's not really a deal. You have to take our conditions. It's a price. Didn't one of the Republican senators say that? And then Biden, okay,
Johnson might be.
What's that?
Might have been Johnson that said that.
Yeah. But maybe it was one of them even more moderate, kind of Corden types or something. It was really bad because they were all falling into line. Instead of all these wonderful moderate Republicans who speak so eloquently about Ukraine, not a single one has deviated from the notion that, God forbid, you should do the right thing and pass aid to Israel, which they're allegedly for, aid to Ukraine, which they're allegedly for, and money for the border, which they're allegedly for, right. And just leave aside this other thing to debate in another context. But no, none of them.
Not even admit.
Everyone has to, right. Everyone has to, they have to not have a bargain, though. They have to pay a price. And the price is moving. So the price is getting close to now the actual Republican bill, HR2, which is pretty draconian and huge overhaul of our immigration laws across the board, parole, asylum, all kinds of things. I don't know the details much, but I was at a meeting today with some immigration people and they were talking about it. And some of them do think Biden probably maybe just has to do it. And we have 1 year of these sort of draconian policies, but he campaigned against that. He's spent 3 years explaining that these are very bad policies. So the Republicans are being disingenuous, dishonest, and moving the goalposts. And they don't want to deal. I was trying to explain this to these earnest, nice people who are actually working on immigration policy. It's like the Republicans don't understand the issue very well, and they're kind of confused, and they're mixed signals and stuff like that. A lot of them don't want a deal. They want the border to be worse in November. 10 or 11 months from now. They don't want to improve the situation at the border. They want the border to be chaos. And they want Biden to be blamed for it. So a deal is a problem for the Republicans, and they've sort of got their fingerprints on it too. So I think it's, at least for many of the Republicans, not all, it's totally dishonest. They don't want a deal. They just want to highlight the issue and then blame Biden for not taking a deal that wasn't really doable, and then spend 10 months running on the border and on immigration. So it's really bad. But the White House, I've got to say, whether they tactically should take the deal or not, they're not explaining anything, are they? I mean, they're not pummeling the Republicans at all. On the immigration is a two-sided issue. Trump paid some price, I think, for the babies in the cages and stuff like that. And there's no coherent Democratic message that I can see on this whole
Well,
matter.
no, I think the Democrats are split in the Senate about what to do. I mean, Fetterman came out today and was it's weird. Fetterman is somehow become like the moderate voice of reason, but he was out there today saying basically we should do the deal, right? Like the border situation is untenable. There are real problems at the border. I disagree with I didn't appreciate the person in the comments talking about people at the border as those people, and we should militarize them. We should excise that person from this comment section. That's you're on the you should be on the Daily Wire, ma'am. But we treat people as humans. It is a humanitarian crisis at the border.
Right.
Maybe we need to do things differently. Maybe there need to be different rules, different message. Maybe people are getting the wrong message that are trying to come here. So changing some of these rules, asylum rules, in order to fund Ukraine, Israel, not ideal, but I think makes sense politically and policy wise, as long as none of these changes lead to kids in cages, right, or anything just horrible, any of those kind of human rights abuses. And so I think that what Biden is doing, my best spin for Biden right now is that it seems to me that the administration is actually working in good faith, is working with Sinema and some of the more conservative members of the Democratic Party on the Hill to try to get a real deal, and they're offering Republicans a ton of money for the border. They're offering certain changes, maybe not everything that's in HR 2, but some changes to the way that people are processed. And I think the Republicans are going to keep moving the goalposts because they don't want to do it. They don't want to pay for Ukraine because a lot of them are in Putin's pocket, and their base has now become like isolationist Orbanists, and because what you said about it's better for them politically if the border is bad. So, the question is, once again, we always keep coming back to this: do the responsible, can Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney and Susan Collins, can they put together 10 of them to come up with an actual deal? 10 of them that do agree this matters. I hope the Zelensky meeting helped on that front. And I hope that Kristen Sinema, who I haven't always loved, can help on that front, right? But I don't know. That's my most optimistic spin on things.
No, I hope so. Then they still have the House to get it through. So that would be great. I mean, that would be good.
Then you can pressure them, though. Then you have political pressure.
I agree.
You've got to deal with the Senate.
I do feel that they've been, but one way you get these deals, as is you both bargain, and you also put some pressure on them from the outside. Clinton did this with welfare. You give in on some things, but you also beat them up on certain things. And I think the beating up stuff, the Biden administration. But again, to be fair to Biden, it's like Nikki Haley. He shouldn't have to do this. Isn't there like a Democratic Party in existence? Isn't there a Biden campaign organization in existence? Aren't there surrogates? I mean, what is actually going on? I really do feel, someone said this to me today in a kind of honest way, which is like, well, where's the political operation? I mean, that's a good question, isn't it?
I was hanging out with some Democrats in DC last week, and I did have a couple of private conversations with high-level Democrats on this front that I am going to save to share on the Next Level podcast tomorrow, right here on the Bulwark YouTube feed. So that's a tease for you. I'm sorry, we're in the content business. Come right back here tomorrow on Wednesday. I'll be with JVL and Sarah, and Bill, you can listen in. I'll tell you what I said. Wasn't that encouraging though? My main message, I'll just say now, without getting into the details, was you need a hammer out there. The Democrats need a hammer. They need to identify somebody and empower them, and it needs to be a senior person, and they need to be a hammer out there that can be on the shows, be on TV, and carry a message for Joe Biden. In a different world, the vice president could do that. That's not going to happen here for a variety of reasons. So they need to find somebody else to do it. And I think that's a big gap right now, because I do think that having someone out there that was very clearly saying, we're giving them money, we're offering them changes, and they are the ones that are still abandoning Israel and Ukraine. They are. I think that could be powerful.
No, sure. Have Harry, the old Harry Reid types. It could be senators, it could be governors. Someone should be standing up with a blown up check in front of the Capitol, $20 billion for border security. We Democrats are for this. The Republicans are refusing to use this money to strengthen our border because they're insisting on all kinds of other things. I mean, there are a million things you can say. You've done this stuff in campaigns, and could do different thing every day and see which one clicks, and then get some pickup and stuff. But they just doesn't seem to be in their game plan to have sort of public campaigns and public pressure to attack the Republicans. TV
gets to social media, Jeff. That's why TV matters, because you have to have a leading speaker a person that speaks for the party. Social media is disparate. That's fine. I hope they should do it on social media too. They should. Chris Murphy should be out there. Everybody, all these senators should be out there. They should have a unified message. But that Biden needs to empower someone to be able to carry a message that can get through. Anyway, Bill, hopefully it happens. I'm a little more optimistic on this one than the other ones. Maybe it's just that I can't believe we're going to let Ukraine lose over that. They really are all just going to totally fold.
I can't believe it either. And we do have these government shutdown at the end of government funding, at the end of January, it's weird two-stage thing, and then mid-February. And presumably that's the vehicle on which you would get all this stuff added. So but I don't think it can happen. It will happen this week or next week. I think it will happen in January. And at that point, to get back to our earlier conversation, Donald Trump could well have won Iowa and New Hampshire. And then he just do this thought experiment. What if they do cut a deal and Trump comes out against it? Do we think the House, right? And he's then the really prohibitive favorite to be the nominee after winning the first two primaries. So I'm worried, and I'm so horrified at the thought of just totally abandoning Ukraine unnecessarily and foolishly and immorally that I don't like to think about that, but I am pretty worried about it.
We always end the ballot box on an uplift.
I know, it's terrible. That's what the next level is
next
for.
Week,
the next you get JVL on, and then people get cheered up.
In 2 weeks, it will be the day after Christmas. I don't know if we're actually going to do this on the 26th, but I think we should. And maybe we should have a 5-minute version. I'll wear my stocking cap, and we'll just talk about our children or something, our grandchildren in your case. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We will have a happy one of these days. But that's it for today. Come back here tomorrow. And, I'll give you the goss about my conversations in the White House last week. And we'll have a lot of other stuff here. YouTube, Bulwark YouTube page, subscribe to it. Bill, I'll see you back here next Tuesday.
Great. Good to see
you, everybody.